This is Chapter 13 of What Grows After Goodbye by Alexi Hart. Snow flurries arrived in Willow Creek early that December, frosting the tops of mailboxes and turning the town square into a glittering postcard. Natalie could not remember the last time she had been excited for a cold front. Maybe the year Ryan had gotten his first sled, and she'd spent hours pulling him up and down a hill. Or the Christmas she and her late husband, Ben, had bought a tree too tall for their living room and spent the night laughing as it toppled over. Nostalgia brushed against her like a gentle hand, but it did not sting the way it used to. Instead, it folded seamlessly into the warm anticipation she felt now. The Grove's inaugural Ugly Sweater networking mixer was set to begin in 20 minutes, and Natalie stood in front of her closet, holding up two equally hideous options. One knit monstrosity featuring blinking reindeer noses, and another with pom-pom snowmen. Michael lounged against the doorframe, wearing a sweater that sported an LED fireplace, complete with crackling sounds. Darlene had delivered it with a flourish that morning, along with the instruction to own your tacky pride. "You realize," Natalie said, holding the reindeer sweater in front of her like armor, "that if pictures of this end up online, I'm blaming you." Michael placed a hand over his heart. "I accept full responsibility. Besides, you'll be in good company. Carla's wearing one with a 3D turkey centerpiece." "It's the wrong holiday!" Natalie groaned, but pulled the reindeer sweater on anyway. The blinking noses cast a red glow under her chin. "How do I look?" "Like every teenage boy's Christmas fantasy," he said, straight-faced. Her laughter bounced off the walls. "And like the woman I plan to steal mistletoe kisses from at every opportunity." The Grove buzzed with energy when they arrived. Strands of multicolored lights looped from the exposed beams and around the succulents that lined the windowsill. A makeshift photo booth in the corner encouraged attendees to pose with oversized snowflake props and ironic hashtags. The scent of spiced cider mingled with the faint aroma of coffee and new laptop plastic. Michael's team had set up tables with name tags, donation jars for a local charity, and bowls of candy canes. The DJ, a high school student with a part-time gig, had carefully curated a playlist that blended holiday classics with upbeat pop. Every now and then, Jingle Bell Rock faded seamlessly into a Beyoncé anthem. Darlene was the first to greet them, adjusting the shoulder pads of her sweater, which depicted Santa riding a llama. "You two are late," she scolded. "I'm already 3 mulled wines in, and I've promised to teach the mayor how to floss." "Please don't," Michael said. "I don't want an insurance claim on our first month." Carla approached with a tray of holiday cookies, shaped like books, courtesy of a local baker. "Look at us," she said, handing them each a cookie. "We're grown adults in sweaters that would make our mothers blush, and we're loving it." Throughout the evening, Natalie moved between groups of entrepreneurs, teachers, and artists, introducing people and making them feel welcome. She had always assumed networking events were stiff affairs, where people traded business cards like currency. But this felt like a party. At one point, she found herself deep in conversation with a ceramics artist about glazing techniques, then turned to advise a college student on the best laptops for coding. When she spotted Michael laughing with a group of engineers while absent-mindedly adjusting the blinking flames on his sweater, her chest swelled with affection. "He looks happy," a voice said beside her. She turned to see Claire balancing a cup of cider and wearing a relatively understated sweater with sequined snowflakes. Claire's presence had been awkward at first, but after their brief confrontation the week before, she seemed to have accepted Natalie's place in Michael's life. "He is," Natalie replied cautiously. "And so are you," Claire observed. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. I might have been testing boundaries. Old habits die hard." Natalie blinked. Of all the things she had expected tonight, an apology from Claire was not one of them. "Thank you," she said, meaning it. "It's a small town. We're bound to run into each other. I'd rather it be friendly. Claire smiled. Me too. She clinked her cup against Natalie's. To ugly sweaters and new beginnings. Later, Michael took the microphone to thank everyone for coming and to announce that the Grove would sponsor a local artist residency in the spring. As he spoke, Natalie leaned against a wall, sipping cider and letting the sound of his voice wash over her. She had never imagined she would end up with a man who made speeches in front of crowds, who wore flashy sweaters on purpose, who looked at her like she hung the moon. Yet, here she was. Her chest fluttered with equal parts love and terror as she thought about the conversation she had promised to have with Mr. Whitaker about the bookstore. 2 days later, she and Michael sat across from Mr. Whitaker at the bookstore after closing. Account ledgers and loan amortization schedules lay spread on the table like a deck of tarot cards foretelling her future. The store was quiet, the only sound the hum of the heater and the faint squeak of the sign swinging outside in the wind. "I know it's a big step," Mr. Whitaker said, tapping a pencil against the table. "But numbers aside, this is your community. These shelves already know your name." Natalie glanced at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. They had spent the weekend with spreadsheets open on the coffee table, analyzing cash flow and worst-case scenarios between episodes of their favorite crime drama. He'd joked that nothing turned him on like a well-organized pivot table. She had thrown a pillow at him. But the truth was, the process had been oddly bonding. They were building something together. 2 somethings, and each step felt like layering a stone into a foundation. "I'm ready," she said, surprising herself with how certain she sounded. Her voice didn't wobble. "I want to do this." Mr. Whitaker's eyes crinkled. "Good. We'll work out the details. But I'd like to start the transition after the holidays. I'll still be around for a while to help. Carla already said she's eager to boss you around." "And I'm looking forward to bossing her back," Natalie replied, grinning. They signed initial papers, with their fingers trembling slightly from excitement, and Mr. Whitaker slid a brass key across the table. "This was the original key to the shop when my father opened it in 1954. It doesn't actually work on the current lock, but it's symbolic. Don't lose it." Natalie pressed the cool metal into her palm, the weight of it both metaphorical and literal. "Thank you," she whispered. On the way home, she held the key up to the car's overhead light. 2 keys in 1 week, she mused. Pretty soon my purse will jingle like Santa's sleigh. "I told you, I have a thing for giving you keys," Michael replied. "Wait until you see what the next one unlocks." Her pulse stumbled. "You're enjoying this torture." "A little," he admitted, squeezing her knee. "But mostly I'm enjoying watching you claim your life. I'm so proud of you." She smiled, feeling tears threaten. But this time, they were good ones. "I couldn't have done it without you." "You could have," he corrected. "You didn't have to." The Winter Festival arrived the following weekend, transforming the town square into a scene from a snow globe. Booths selling hot chocolate and handmade ornaments lined the perimeter. The giant pine tree in the center was wrapped in thousands of twinkling lights, ready to be lit at dusk. Children in wool hats clutched cotton candy and tugged their parents toward the ice skating rink, set up where the farmers' market usually convened. Natalie hadn't skated since she was 20, and her ankles wobbled as she laced the rented skates. Michael, who claimed he had glided around the rink at Rockefeller Center in his 20s, tied his laces with cocky precision. "You sure you're ready for this?" he teased, offering his hand. "I was born ready," she retorted, gripping his hand perhaps a little too tightly as they stepped onto the ice. She took tentative strokes, sliding forward with more grace than she expected. Laughter rippled out of her when Michael wobbled and grabbed her shoulders to steady himself. "Thought you were a pro," she teased. "I lied," he admitted, laughing.
I spent most of my time drinking hot cocoa inside while my friends skated.
They fell into an easy rhythm, gliding around the rink as carols drifted through the air. Darlene and Carla skated by holding hands, shrieking every time they passed a group of teenagers. Helen and Walter watched from the sidelines, mugs of cider steaming between their hands, Walter's knit cap pulled low over his ears. As twilight deepened, the mayor climbed the small stage near the tree and tapped the microphone. "Friends and neighbors," she said, her voice echoing, "thank you for coming to our annual Winter Festival. We light this tree in honor of our community, its resilience, its generosity, and its ability to embrace change while preserving our roots. Let us remember those we have lost and celebrate those we have gained." A hush fell over the crowd. Natalie's breath clouded in the cold air. She felt Michael's gloved hand find hers. When the lights flicked on, the tree exploded into color, casting the square in a warm glow. Gasps and applause rippled through the crowd. For a brief moment, time seemed suspended. Michael leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. "Dance with me," he whispered. "Here?" she asked, laughing softly. "On ice?" "Why not?" He turned her toward him, their skates moving in slow circles. There was no music, except the faint strains of a violin from a nearby booth, but that was enough. They clung to each other, laughing and swaying, their cheeks flushed from the cold and the intimacy of dancing under thousands of lights. "Did you know," Michael said, his breath warm against her face, "that I used to watch you dance at our high school winter formals and wish I had the nerve to cut in?" She looked up at him, the memory resurfacing like a snow globe being shaken. "You never did," she whispered, surprised by how clearly she could picture him at 17, leaning against a bleacher, blue eyes tracking her across the gym floor. "No," he said, "I was certain you belonged to someone else. I didn't want to be the guy who tried to ruin that. I always wanted the best for you, even if it wasn't me." Natalie's throat tightened. She touched his cheek with her gloved hand. "Thank you for waiting." "Thank you for finding me," he replied. They kissed, a soft pressing of lips that held years of missed chances, and the thrill of finally aligning. The cold air bit their faces, but warmth radiated from their joined hands. Back at Natalie's house, a crackling fire in the living room replaced the biting wind outside. They hung their coats and scarves, toes numb, hearts full. Michael went to the kitchen to make hot chocolate, while Natalie slipped upstairs to change. When she came back down, she wore a soft sweater and leggings, and had let her hair fall loose over her shoulders. Afterward, he stayed close, palms smoothing down her back in slow, grounding strokes, as if he could feel her settling. His kisses turned gentler, lingering at her temple and the corner of her mouth, a quiet reassurance that this wasn't heat. It was him choosing her, again, slower each time. "One for you," Michael said, handing her a mug topped with whipped cream and chocolate shavings. "And one for me." He sank onto the couch, patting the space beside him. They sipped in comfortable silence, the firelight dancing across the walls. Outside, snowfall in earnest, flakes swirling like confetti under the streetlight. The world felt muffled and intimate. "Do you ever think about the future?" Natalie asked, staring into her mug. Michael set his drink on the coffee table and turned to her. "All the time," he said. "I think about running the Grove, watching it become a place where people create things that change the world. I think about reading to kids at your bookstore and arguing over which novel to stock in the front window. I think about taking trips with you to places neither of us has been, and maybe someday teaching Ryan's kids how to make the perfect cup of coffee." Her eyes stung. "Me too," she whispered. "Sometimes it terrifies me, because I never planned beyond Ben, like I'm cheating fate. But then I remember that life isn't about plans. It's about the people who make the plans worth altering. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. We're not cheating fate. We're honoring it by living well. Natalie set her mug down and cupped his face, kissing him. The kiss deepened quickly, desire rising between them like the flames in the fireplace. He pulled her onto his lap, his hands sliding beneath her sweater to rest on the warm skin of her waist. She ran her fingers through his hair, feeling the soft strands between her fingers. The world narrowed to the two of them and the crackle of wood. They moved to the rhythm of their own breathing, slow and intentional at first, and then more urgent. Clothes became an afterthought, a path of fabric marking their journey from the couch to the rug in front of the fire. They laughed softly when a stray sock landed on the hearth. They gasped when cool air hit heated skin, and they whispered words that were half nonsense and half promises. When they finally collapsed, spent and tangled, Natalie lay with her head on Michael's chest, listening to his heartbeat steady. You were right, he murmured, tracing circles on her shoulder. About what? She asked, eyes heavy.
Ugly sweaters are incredibly sexy,
He said, and she laughed, the sound echoing around the room like bells.